بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله الأمين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. We continue to study the book or the chapter that deals with funeral prayer, and we have hadith 156.
Narrated Jabir ibn Abdullah radiallahu anhu, Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam offered the funeral prayer for an Najashi, and I was in the second or third row. Bukhari.
This hadith is similar to the previous hadith, yet it's a number of rows. Though in the musalla you could have one row, yet we know that the sunnah is to have at least 3 rows when you pray funeral prayer, even if each row consisted of only 2 people. It's okay, but you have to have 3 rows. And what happens if 2 are praying only on a funeral, on a dead person? Scholars say that the imam is in front and the person next to him goes behind him, so that they would make 2 rows. And this is the only prayer where we have the follower, the ma'moom, standing behind the imam alone. Usually he stands next to him, but in this prayer, no. Funeral prayer, he has to stand right behind him. And we've stated that the more people who pray funeral prayer, the higher it is as a possibility for him to be forgiven, and Allah would accept their intercession. And that is why a lot of the Muslims, especially in Saudi Arabia, they taken into Mecca, so that imagine how many people pray funeral prayer on them. 200,000, 300,000. But what is the ruling on transporting a corpse from one location to the other? The most authentic opinion, as Al-Imam Al-Nawawi stated, that it is forbidden. It is not permissible to transport a corpse from one place to the other unless there is a real urgent need for that, such as there isn't any graveyards for Muslims. So where can we bury him? Can we bury him with the disbelievers, with the non-Muslims? No. Muslims have to be buried in their own graveyards, in their own cemeteries. They cannot bury others with them, and they cannot be buried in other cemeteries with non-Muslims. And scholars say that it is not permissible to transport a corpse from one city to the other, as in the case in transporting it to Mecca, or ordered us to hasten in preparing the funeral. And being buried in any location does not add any value. So people, when they think that being buried in Medina is beneficial to the deceased, being buried in Mecca is good for the person who died, this is baseless. There is a hadith that encourages us to die in Medina, but not to be transported and to move the corpse to Medina after death. After death, there is no use of that. The Prophet says, alayhi salatu wasalam, whoever among you can die in Medina, he should do so, which encourages the people to live in Medina and to die there. But to be buried there without dying has no significance and no reward at all. On the contrary, it adds more burden to your family. It is not sufficient for you that you're dead and they're sad about you. You add to that, move your body somewhere that is far, and this would cost money and this would take a lot of time. No, this is not permissible and it is not recommended. We've noticed that it was the Prophet ﷺ who conveyed the information about the death of the Najashi to his companions. However, we also know that the Prophet ﷺ forbade us from declaring the death of people. And this is called na'i. So how can we combine between the two? It's very simple. What is forbidden is that you go on top of minarets, on top of roofs, and shout, so-and-so has died, so-and-so has died, and you go in the roads, in the markets, carrying a bell or just shouting, informing people of the death of a person. This is haram, because this is part of the actions of the people of Jahiliyyah. But if you're calling someone to inform him that so-and-so has died, this is permissible, as some scholars say, but they say that this is permissible because of the fact that it is permissible when you want them to help you in burial, when you want them to help you in seeking forgiveness, when you want people to pray, funeral prayer. This becomes permissible. But to call on the people in the streets, in the market, you find big pages of newspapers of the deceased who has died, he has moved into Allah's mercy and forgiveness. How do you know that he did not go to Allah's wrath and anger? We pray, we hope, but publishing such things or putting advertisements that so-and-so has died, this is not part of the sunnah that the Prophet ﷺ encouraged us to do. Likewise, it is not permissible to go and compliment someone about things that are not in him, especially when we hear about rulers who died or about dignitary people who died. After their death, we know that they were robbers, we know that they embezzled public money, we know that they stole from the treasury, but then we find all these praising of them and compliments to making them as saints. All of these are lies. You can't, after the death of a person who was almost a criminal, who was known to be bribed every single day, you claim that he has so many good. These are all forbidden in Islam. Moving on to hadith 157. Faisal.
Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh said that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam observed prayer over a grave after the dead was buried, and he recited 4 takbirs over him.
This hadith, we learn from it the ruling on praying on a person who has been buried. Why? Because some scholars say that this is not permissible at all to pray in the graveyard. And anyone, with all due respect, who says this, we tell him that the Prophet did it, alayhi salatu wasalam. So this means that it is permissible. But we're not offering normal prayer. What is forbidden for a Muslim to pray or to offer in the graveyard is any normal prayer. Mandatory prayer, voluntary prayer, all of this is completely prohibited to do between graves. Why? Because you're prostrating, and this is means of shirk. So you want to pray, you go outside, except the prayer of funeral. Grave and offer funeral prayer. And likewise, the woman, the black woman who used to clean the masjid. A woman who is unknown. We know nothing of her, not her name, yet we only know her by her actions. She used to clean the masjid, and when she died, she was buried at night, and the Prophet was asleep. And when he woke up, alayhi salatu wasalam, they told him he was very angry. And he said, why didn't you notify me? They said, because you were asleep. So the Prophet went and asked where her grave was and offered funeral prayer there. So those who did not offer funeral prayer, it is permissible for them to go to the graveyard and offer the funeral prayer there. Some scholars said that providing this is before 1 month is over after his burial. Why? They said because after 1 month he would be decayed and his body was changed. But again, this is baseless. You don't have any restriction of a month, a week, a year. So it appears that if you did not offer funeral prayer, that you can go and offer it whenever you are able to do so. However, how do we offer funeral prayer? It's very simple. It has no consists of 4 takbir, and there are a number of narrations that make the takbir reach as far as 9, but the scholars say that only 4 or 5 are authentic and the rest are not authentic. So 4 or 5 is permissible. So how to do it? We're going to take an example of offering 4 takbir, because this is the majority of scholars agree upon. You offer the first takbir, Allahu Akbar, and you recite al-Fatiha. أعوذ بالله الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم to the end. After you finish, you may recite another surah. If the Imam is still reciting, you recite Qul Huwallahu Ahad, any other short surah. Once he finishes, he says Allahu Akbar, and then he offers the prayer on the Prophet ﷺ. We don't have any explanation whether it's the short one, Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Muhammad, or the long one. But the majority of people who pray on funerals offer the long one, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidun Majid. Then you offer the third takbir, Allahu Akbar. And what do you say afterwards? This is what we'll find inshallah after the break. So stay. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. As stated before the break, funeral prayer consists of 4 takbir. First one, you recite al-Fatiha. Second one, you offer salatu salam on the Prophet ﷺ. Third one, you supplicate for the deceased. What do you mean by supplicating for the deceased? There are a number of supplications that وعافه واعف عنه وتوله برعايتك ولا تحرمه اللهم أكرم نزله ووسع مدخله وافسح له في قبره واجعله مد بصره اللهم اغسله من خطاياه بالماء والثلج والبرد, and so on. So all what you do is you supplicate for the sake of the deceased, that Allah enlarges his grave, that Allah makes it a garden of paradise, and that Allah washes him from his sins as the thobe or the garment is cleaned and cleansed by washing it with water, snow. And you go on asking that Allah substitute him with better family and better house than he had here. And then may Allah grant the patience and tolerance to his family who lost their loved ones. And you ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make him steadfast in this life and in the hereafter with the right word of the kalima. Sake of the deceased. And then you offer takbir, the 4th takbir, and you do not say a thing, a short pause, and then you go Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah to the right only. This is the format that the majority of Muslims worldwide do it. It's very easy, but sometimes people forget. A lot of the times when we have funeral prayer, people, because they don't offer it, they say, what's after the Fatiha? Short surah? After the 2nd takbir, what do you do? I don't know, I forgot. And they get confused. So, what is the ruling if I miss few of the takbirs? So I come to the Imam when he's offering the 3rd takbir. He says Allahu Akbar, and I say the first one, Allahu Akbar. I recite the Fatiha. When he says Allahu Akbar the 4th, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, I say Allahu Akbar the 2nd, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, Allahu Akbar the 3rd, Allahu Akbar the 3rd takbir. No one would relate the 2nd and the 3rd with the name of Allah Azza wa Jal. And then I would offer the dua as long as the funeral is still there, and I offer salam after the fourth takbir. And this is approximately what may be regarding the funeral prayer. Do we have any questions here? Yes, brother.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
The Fatiha and the short surah is to be recited loudly or silently?
No, the Fatiha should be recited. The whole prayer is a silent prayer. There are some narrations that some of the companions raised their voice only to said this clearly, that I did this so that you would learn that there is Fatiha to be recited here. But yes, the norm is the whole prayer is prayed silently. Yes, brother.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Salam.
Sheikh, my question is regarding the deceased, the corpse. In today's time, if we donate an eye of a person, or if we, or for that matter, even sell it, we get a nice price if we see. So is it allowed to donate, or if the family is poor, can they sell the deceased organs?
It's an issue of dispute among scholars. The most authentic opinion, whether in life or after death, the body is not yours, and hence you're not allowed to use or to donate anything of it. While you're alive, scholars differed, and some say that it is permissible for you, while you're alive, to donate something that you do not need in your body. For example, if someone needs a liver transplant, one told him, I'm not sure, you have to go to a surgeon or to a doctor to verify this. They take a piece of the liver which grows afterwards. So if this is the case and this would not harm me, I can donate my liver. Kidneys is a different issue altogether. Some say that we have two, so we can donate one. To me, this is not applicable at all, because Allah gave you two and you never know when you need them. So if you donate one, to work with one might be very hazardous for you and you may need this. Now, donating after death is a complete different story, because the Prophet said, ﷺ, the breaking of a dead bone, of a dead person's bone, is as severe and as forbidden as breaking it for a living person. And the Prophet ﷺ forbade us from mutilating a dead person's body. And what is more mutilating than having his kidney, his heart, he's being used as a car's spare part? This is not permissible. He has to be honored. He has to be buried with dignity. One would say, okay, what about the living? Akhi, the living are going to die. So prolonging it a couple of years more by doing such forbidden acts is not a solution.
Sheikh, this is regarding a person who goes missing, for many years, like about 25, 30 years, that person has gone missing or was picked up by someone and nobody knows where that person is. And that's well past the normal age that people live. So in that case, what are we supposed to do? I mean, supposed to pray the funeral prayer or what?
We are supposed to pray the funeral prayer only if the judge, the Muslim judge, rules that he is now considered to be dead. And by this, they don't do it by 5 months' time or a year time. Usually, it takes approximately like 4 years' time or so. It differs from one school of thought to the other. But once the judge rules it, funeral prayer, and also his wife stays the iddah of death, which is 4 months and 10 days, and the inheritance is being distributed only when the ruler does this.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
Suppose a man and his wife go for hajj and the man dies. So should the woman complete the hajj without a mahram, or return back and complete the iddah?
The woman is obliged to leave because she does not have a mahram and she has to observe her iddah. And by completing her hajj, she is not doing so. And Allah Azza wa Jal knows best.
Because of the ignorance of many people of how to go on in the funeral prayer, would it be appropriate on the part of the person who leads the prayer to indicate to the people the modality of praying, and if possible during the course of the prayer through whispers like in the first rakat Surah Fatiha, like Alhamdulillah, is it appropriate?
This is possible, and it's being done in a lot of the masjids. And even sometimes when I pray funeral prayer, I indicate and teach the people, and I say before starting the prayer, it consists of 4 takbir. After the first Fatiha, the second you offer salutation, the third we do this all the time. Now regarding of the whispering part, distract people from praying, because you are the one with the microphone. So if you are whispering and I am also trying to make dua, I'm confused because you're saying Allahumma ghfir lahu warham and I'm saying something else. So you're confusing me. So most likely no, you're not supposed to raise your voice or whisper so that people would know. It's sufficient, it's enough for you to tell them that the prayer is composed of this and this and this, and that is all, inshallah. The brother with the red shirt, though you should change your red shirts because red shirts are not permitted for men to wear.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. What about the people who work in the ships? They stay for years in the oceans, in the ship. So if they die, they have 2 reasons. If they send the body back to the home, which takes few days, or they dispose the body in the ocean. So what should be?
No, they should not dispose of the body in the ocean, especially nowadays. The furthest you could go is a couple of days or 3 days. And then there is a city, there is a country, there is a land that you can dock in and you can bury the body. If I die in India, my will is that I'm buried in where I die. Why should I go back to Saudi Arabia? If I die in UK, I would like to be buried wherever I die. And this is the proper way of doing it. And it was reported that a brother of Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, died in the valley of Abyssinia. And they brought him to Medina. And she said, by Allah, if I knew, I would have instructed them to bury him where he died. Because transporting a corpse all this long is not part of the sunnah. I'm afraid that this is all the time we have for today. Until we meet next time, fi amanillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.